We have some major breaking news. A legal expert just dropped a major bomb on Donald Trump over the new Ghislaine Maxwell transcripts that were just released. And this exposes how Maxwell was essentially able to lie in these transcripts, which is just even more evidence to not trust a word that came out of her mouth. So stick around for this new bombshell, and don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for more. Now before we get into what this legal expert said, I think it's important to mention a very interesting thing that's happening with this transcript. When we knew the transcript was going to be coming out, everyone seemed to agree that Ghislaine Maxwell was not trustworthy, and that this would be heavily edited to just make Donald Trump look innocent. But what I did not expect was for people on the right to agree with this sentiment. Just hours after the transcripts were released, you had Fox News of all people basically saying that we can't trust a thing from these, which is crazy coming from them. Just take a look at what this one Fox host had to say.
That list may not be written down on some nice, cute spreadsheet, but it's in her head. And I wish they would just ask her the simple question. Well, then the people who visited the island, start writing down a list. If you're going to get limited immunity, you better start coming up with a list. And you can verify whether or not President Clinton went to the island. Go ask the Secret Service. There's a reason. The Secret Service is secretive, but they're also law enforcement. And if there was a commission of a crime, they still need to answer questions. They shouldn't be bashful about asking them. And I think they should go to that direction. But I don't buy what she's selling at this point. She is highly motivated to say whatever she needs to say in order to get out earlier. But come on, there's 2 people that went to jail. Only one of them is still alive. And there's nobody else that did anything wrong. And you can't come up with anybody else who did.
If even Fox News is saying that, yeah, this isn't trustworthy, then you know something isn't right. But what's even more telling is this legal expert who exposed just how much Ghislaine Maxwell lied in these transcripts and how she was able to get away with so much. Just take a look at this interview.
And it is also noteworthy that this is coming out late on a Friday afternoon, several hours after they executed a search warrant at John Bolton's house. This is not Monday morning, 8 a.m. stuff. This is end of summer, Friday afternoon.
Indeed it is. Let me read the section that you just alluded to, Glenn, for those of you who are following along at home. This is in pages 104 to 109. This is Ghislaine Maxwell talking about Donald Trump. She says, and as far as I'm concerned, President Trump was always very cordial and very kind to me. And I just want to say that I admire his extraordinary achievement in becoming the president now. And I like him, and I've always liked him. So that is the sum and substance of my entire relationship with him. Lisa Rubin, what do you make of that mention?
Well, I make of it basically what Glenn makes of it, which is she is overly solicitous of the person who has given her ultimately the opportunity to speak with Todd Blanche. But Alicia, other than her mentions of President Trump herself, one of the things I find really interesting here is how carefully worded Todd Blanche's questions are so as not to elicit an answer he doesn't want. So yes, we can make a lot out of the fact that Todd Blanche has a prior association with the president, but by no means is he a bad lawyer or a stupid lawyer. I want to read to you from page 108. This is after they're done talking about President Trump. Todd Blanche asks Ghislaine Maxwell, do you know whether masseuses from Mar-a-Lago Spa ended up giving massages, private massages to Mr. Epstein? I'm not asking for what you may have read, but from at the time, your personal knowledge, do you know whether that's true? And she responds, I don't recall. Is it possible? Yes, but I don't remember. I don't remember that. And then he asks her again whether she recalls ever recruiting a masseuse from Mar-a-Lago, and she says that didn't happen. The reason I'm bringing this up is because Virginia Giuffre was infamously recruited from the Mar-a-Lago locker room where she was working what was supposed to be a fun summer job. In fact, Ghislaine Maxwell, according to Virginia Giuffre, approached her as she was reading a book about how to become a masseuse. That was a career opportunity she was interested in as a high school student at the time. Ghislaine Maxwell, according to Virginia Giuffre, pounced on that and used that as an opportunity to recruit her into Epstein's world. But was she a masseuse technically at Mar-a-Lago? She was not. And I was really struck by the precision of the wording here so as not to get into that. The other thing that strikes me, and I want to go back to what Andrew said, is that we have to keep in mind who Ghislaine Maxwell is and was, a person who was charged with multiple counts of perjury by the Southern District, although those were ultimately dismissed when they secured her conviction. there are places here where you can already see things that are belied by the evidence. She, for example, says that one of the prosecutors in Florida, the federal prosecutors who was responsible for the investigation of Jeffrey Epstein that resulted in that sweetheart deal with Alex Acosta, is a woman named Anne-Marie Villafana. And she says that Anne-Marie Villafana had an unholy alliance with Brad Edwards, who is a lawyer who has represented many of the victims of both Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell for years. She says that Anne-Marie Villafana had said in a report that the Department of Justice put out 5 years ago that Brad Edwards was essentially the only lawyer for victims that she was allowed to talk to. The report says the exact opposite in a footnote. So everybody has to take what Ghislaine Maxwell is saying with a big, huge, mass of sodium, not just a grain of salt, given historically how she has resisted the truth, including responsibility for her own conduct.
This is sadly not surprising at all. We knew that this transcript would be bogus the second we heard about it, but these legal experts really hit home just how much this is being spun to make it seem like they all did nothing wrong. I'm sure there's going to be even more coming out in the coming days, so if you want to stay up to date, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe for more.